Howdy, my name is Dr. Morgan Jones. I'm a program manager with the Academic Success Center here at Texas A&M University. I'm joined today by Kendall Callan, one of our graduate interns, and our third member of our agendas team, Haley Jersick, who couldn't be here today, who was our program aide, but also affectionately dubbed our Super Sim. Our Sims are our SI mentors. And today we're just going to be talking about how we as an office have changed our structure a little bit and started creating agendas for our weekly SI trainings. And so some of our objectives today are just to maybe help you learn how to effectively utilize the structure of your SI program to provide support and consistent communication to your SI leaders and anyone else that works with your SI program. We're also going to look at how you can build some agenda making skills and hopefully help you guide any weekly trainings or regular trainings that you do. We're going to look at curriculum ideas for these weekly meetings and how they relate to the SI model and professional development. And we'll also be talking about how you might be able to generalize some of the components that we have to your SI program. So Kendall, take it away.
Thanks, Morgan. So to gain a deeper understanding of our agenda making process, I do want to share some context about our program. So over this past year, we moved and transitioned from having one SI program coordinator to a multi-tiered structure. Now, this structure includes a director, staff supervisors, 5 SI mentors, otherwise known as SIMs, and about 60 SI leaders. And these SI leaders cover about 22 subject areas. So this transition really told us that we kind of needed to shift to a new process for shared learning and communication. So each week we do have weekly training meetings that either our staff or SI mentors do lead. In these meetings, there's about 5 to 10 SI leaders. And this new restructuring of having the 7 weekly training groups really proved to us that we needed to provide some sort of consistency of communication among our weekly meeting groups. And so because of this, we wanted to establish an agendas team to create these structured plans to disseminate for each SIM. And so our agendas team did consist of our program manager, graduate intern, and our Super Sim. And each week, our agendas team followed a process in which we would create our plan, and then we would actually deliver it and communicate it to our supervisory staff and SIMs each week prior to the weekly meeting that was to be scheduled. So that way they could ask any questions or provide clarification over that agenda that they would be implementing in their training. So now that we understand the context of the program, we'll take a look at the purpose of developing the agenda. So there were multiple reasons for developing our agenda process. As observed on the previous slide, it was really important for us to create a process that created that consistency among the 7 weekly training groups. So that way there was an equal sharing of information. And so we really wanted to hone in on developing the SI leader competencies and their professional development in these weekly meetings. So the purpose of our agenda was really to provide an outline of the curriculum, give access to different materials, and provide the same instructions for the SIMs to use to guide them in their weekly trainings. Having all the SIMs use the same agenda, but also giving them enough flexibility to tailor it to their weekly meeting really allowed that consistency of the same message being shared across the board. And so the content itself actually really stemmed from our desire to equip the leaders with tools that they could add to their tool belt for running their SI sessions, but also, again, developing professionally and even personally. And so since the SI model is grounded in competencies related to facilitation, learning strategies, and collaboration, we really focused on building up these skills and solidifying that SI model. so it can be applied to their sessions. But then lastly, again, we did want to develop the professional skills. So we focused on creating activities that would elevate the leadership, teamwork, and communication of our SI leaders. So that way they can transfer them to their professional careers. Now that we've kind of understood the purpose of our agenda making process, Morgan will share with us the template that we created for this semester.
Thanks, Kendall. So before the semester began, we took feedback from not only the professional staff, but also our SIMs to kind of get an understanding of what they would like to see different in our program to help them do their jobs better. And from that, we took a lot of different ideas and we kind of put them all together. And we were able to come up with a very standard agenda for each week. And so just to show y'all one of the agendas that we created. So it was very important because part of being an SI leader is attending these weekly trainings. And so we had attendance codes for every single session so that we would know who attended and who didn't. We would very clearly talk about what the topic was for that week. And as an agendas team, the three of us, Kendall, Haley, and myself, we were usually 2 or 3 weeks ahead to make sure that we had content already ready to go. But what was nice about these agendas is that we had flexibility. So if something came up, we needed to make changes. It was very easy to go to the correct template, make that change real quickly, and everybody on the team could see it. All our SI mentors could see any changes that we made because we housed all of these documents in our Google Drive. And so we would start with the materials needed for the week. And every agenda had the same 5 items. So first, we always did a recap of the week before. We wanted to make sure that the SIMs and the SI leaders were looking and thinking about, what did we do last week? How have I been implementing these new ideas that I'm getting out of these sessions? And so, but they could also talk about challenges that they've had. And so, might take 10 minutes, could take a little bit more, that's okay. But we wanted to make sure that week to week we were being consistent in reiterating. And again, with the SI model, we do that in sessions. We talk about topics that we've talked about previously. We tie them to new topics. We look ahead. We had business announcements. And so, when our timesheets due, we had peer observations on this particular one. Our Super SIM had office hours every week. And so just kind of any items that came up. And what was nice about this is that when we would do our weekly debrief meetings with the SIMs, if additional items had come up, again, it was very easy to add them to this document so that they'd be ready to go for that next week. We always had an activity. And sometimes it was a PowerPoint, but oftentimes it wasn't. And so what was nice is that we provided a template and kind of a similar ground, but if an SI leader wanted to put their spin on it, that was totally okay. And so for this one, we were talking about Bloom's taxonomy and the SI triangle. And so kind of helping them again understand what are those levels of Bloom's. We talked about it in training. We were reiterating it now in this training again. And also just helping the SI leaders really understand these are some of the things you should think about incorporating into your sessions to help your students get up to these higher order thinking skills. And so they would have this activity. This one happened to have a PowerPoint. Then we put them in breakout rooms to be able to understand and kind of work with it, and then have them then add that and transition it to their subject matter. How could you be doing this in your material for your class? And then we always also added resources. So anything we thought that might be helpful. And again, if a SIM found something, they could add it to this list. And any questions, comments, or concerns. And that way, those could be brought up at our next SIM training to make sure that we were all on the same page. And so all of these, we wanted our SIMs to be making sure that they were using the SI model. They are using facilitation. We are using collaboration. We are showing them how to do this in the SIMs meetings so that they can emulate it in their SI leader meetings each week. And so our SIM was definitely a direct line of communication. We would explain to them what we wanted. They would take that information back to their small groups to hopefully be implemented then in those sessions every week. And so some of the topics that we talked about this past spring. And so, like I said, we had to do some things on the fly. We had a bad snowstorm that cut a week out of our planning. And so we had to switch gears and get rid of a topic. But we also then learned about flexibility. And so we had some agendas created, and then we were getting constant feedback that session plans weren't good. And so we actually ended up changing something and adding in our session plans topic that we hadn't planned on for the semester, but it was really great to be able to just do it on the fly, and it wasn't that big a deal. But there are definitely some topics here that we feel like will be good going forward every week, and we have some topics that we won't necessarily talk about every semester. And so some, like I said, some will rotate, but this is what we did for this semester. And I'm going to hand it back over to Kendall to talk about some of our future issues.
Thanks, Morgan, for sharing with us about the agenda from this past spring. Like Morgan just said, we do hope to continue, and we do plan to continue this agenda making process because we did see the benefit of it. We received multiple appreciation and feedback comments from our SI mentors and SI leaders that it really did enhance and use their time effectively during their weekly training meetings. Also, we are in the process of creating a 2-year training agenda plan. This will consist of a variety of topics, and the main purposes of this plan is really to provide that essential information that SI leaders need each and every semester, but also we're going to rotate some topics because we don't want too much overlapping of content for those SI leaders who are returning each semester. And so we're going to plan to reinforce the SI leader competency topics, but rotate out those professional development topics. So for example, we may do session planning topics each semester, but rotate out professional development subjects. And so additionally to this 2-year plan, we're also going to do a little bit more of restructuring of our program. And this is really to align the job duties of the facilitation of the weekly training meetings, but also just provide a more holistic level of support for the SI leader. And so this is going to be very beneficial to the SI leader because their SI mentor will be able to interact with them more frequently and witness that transfer of learning from the weekly training meetings to the other job roles of the SI leader. And also one unique aspect I don't want to forget to mention is that this new structure is going to allow us to attempt to place SI mentors with SI leaders who share the same subject area so that the training can be really beneficial and tailored to specific learning strategies or collaboration techniques that really elevate and support that subject or course that that SI leader leads. So now that we've kind of taken a look at our future steps, we do hope that there have been some aha moments for you guys during this presentation video that y'all can take and apply back to your program. So some generalizable aspects are, number one, just creating a detailed agenda in advance so that way there's a set plan, there's structure and details, but yet there's flexibility for that SI mentor to really make that meeting and training the best it can be for their leaders. And along with timing of that planning, it also allows the SI mentors to ask questions to clarify any concerns that they may have, or even share some excitement and ideas for the weekly training meeting that they're going to be implementing. Also, the material itself is grounded in the SI model, and it also helps facilitate professional development. And so that's always beneficial for student leaders to really be molded and grow as they leave the SI program and enter the work world. And then lastly, although our program is a multi-tiered structure, really the message is this just being a collective process. So even if there is just a few SIMs or really advanced SI leaders or even just a few staff members, as long as there is some sort of collective process where information is being shared and ideas are all being contributed amongst a group of people, that really shows that sense of shared learning and community. So now that we've looked at the generalizations, we do hope that you have benefited from this video and really gained some insight for an agenda making process, or even just being provided with some takeaways for supporting your SI team in their weekly meetings. So feel free to reach out to us at our email address listed here. And thank you for your time today.